All right, guys, so we're back with part 2. So what we're doing now is we're solving for those x-intercepts. We've solved for these x-intercepts before. We called them solutions, zeros, roots. We're now doing those again so we can actually graph them to go along with all the other key features that we've done previously to make it a more accurate quadratic parabola, okay? So there's 2 methods for us that we've used to quote-unquote solve for x or solve for those x-intercepts and solutions. And they've been in the grouping of factoring, with the GCF, greatest common factor, using that product sum method. We use the product sum method when our A value equals 1. And then if factoring as well, we could also use the slide and divide method, and we use that if our A value is greater than 1. Okay, after, of course, greatest common factor, if we pull that out. So GCF out here, and then your remainder, right? Or we can use quadratic formula, which we've been using a lot, so much, solving with quadratic formula. Either of these methods are going to work and you're going to get the same answer. However, quadratic formula will always work. Factoring might not always work for your problem, okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to, we, you, us, together, all that. We're going to solve it both ways, okay? You pick whichever way is comfortable for you and how you want to solve it. Of course, give it a try, practice, make mistakes, do it again. Check your work. If you can do both of them and you get the same answer, you know you got it right, so that's cool too. All right, so that's what I'm going to be modeling here is the factoring and the quadratic formula for this problem. There will be another model example, I think, after this, but that will just be work and no talking. And then you have some practice problems and guided practice. All right, so let go. Here we go. So first we're going to look at factoring, all right? So factoring GCF, product sum, or slide and divide. I'm actually going to use a pencil. So I have the quadratic equation y equals x squared minus 6x plus 5. Hope y'all can see this, right? And if I'm factoring, I can use GCF. Well, these 3 terms don't have anything in common, 5, 6, and 1. So I don't need GCF, okay? But then I look at product sum. Is my A value equal to 1? Well, technically, we do have that imaginary 1 sitting in front of our x squared, as A is 1. So it is not greater than 1, so we are not going to use slide and divide. We are going to use the product sum method. Product sum method, we need this A, B, and C. So our A value is 1. Our B value is -6, and our C value is 5. Okay, remember to take those signs with those numbers. So we need the B and the C value in order to use product and sum method, because our product is our C value, and our sum is our B value. So our product here is 5, and our sum is -6. So we are going to use the product sum method in order to figure out what 2 values multiply to get 5, and when I add them, get -6. So I know 1 times 5 equals 5. 1 plus 5 equals +6. Well, I know 2 positives make a positive, but 2 negatives also make a positive. Remember, you can also go in Charlie, and you can use your y equals tool, where you go to y equals, you take the product and divide it by x, and then you can determine what values actually factor, okay? Remember that trick. You should have a calculator now. So then, -5 times -1, adding equals -6. So these are my factors. So now we write those factors in binomials. Remember, we're breaking apart, factoring to break apart this quadratic. Our leading coefficient was x. And then now our 2 values are going to go on the inside are going to be -1, as in -1, and -5, as in -5. Okay? Now that was the factoring. But we need to solve for x. So that means what are my x-intercepts when my, you can't see that. What are my x-intercepts when my y value is 0? So we need to set our equation now equal to 0, okay? We've done this before, and the video will be here if you need to click it in order to go back and see this lesson. So now we take each factor and we set it equal to 0. I mean mistakes on mistakes today, friend. Right? And then we solve for x. Boom. We solve for x doing the inverse. Boom. And those now are our x-intercepts. But we have them here as solutions. Our x-intercepts, we want to graph these points on a graph. Remember, the goal is to graph these points. So we're going to turn them into ordered pairs. So our 1, and then our 0, and then our 5 and our 0. And these are our x-intercepts. Uh-oh. Okay? Now, if we would have assigned divide method, you'll see how we would continue on that. Now I'm going to show how we can get these exact same values using the quadratic formula. Okay? Rewind, go back, do it again. So quadratic formula, we know is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you don't have to memorize that, but if you did, that's great and awesome. Okay? So we're going to use the quadratic formula again on our quadratic equation in standard form that we were given in the beginning. Using quadratic formula, we need those a, b, and c values. Okay? So we have our a is 1, our b is negative 6, and our c is 5. Positive 5 this time, correct? All right? So with the quadratic formula, two things help us. The discriminant lets us know how many solutions we're actually solving for if we need to solve for any at all. And then the solutions are what are those actual x values that make this quadratic equation true. So we know we have our a, b, and c. So I like to solve for the discriminant first. And the discriminant is this expression underneath our square root, which is b squared minus 4ac. Okay? So now with the discriminant, we are going to put our place marks where we are going to substitute the values for b, a, and c. B, a, and c. B is negative 6. C is 5. C is 5 and a is 1. I switched those, but they're still going to be okay because we're multiplying. So no, don't sweat. Don't be like, oh my God, miss. It's okay. Now we're going to put that in our calculator and our Charlie on the computer. And please, hopefully you're doing this with me while you're watching. This is 16 is our discriminant. So we remember our discriminant, if it's positive, it's going to give us 2 solutions. So we are going to be solving for 2 solutions. Now we're going to take that value and put it back into the quadratic formula. So instead, I'm going to be using the discriminant right there, divided by 2a. Okay? If I'm going too fast, again, you have the opportunity to rewind and read it again. Listen to it again. Negative parentheses plus or minus the square root of whatever my discriminant value is, 2 times a. I love to put my place markers first so I know what values I'm actually substituting inside. Okay? So our negative b. So negative is on the outside, then our b happens to also be negative. So we're going to insert it there. And I'm sorry if I use a different color. I just like colors, okay? The discriminant value is 16, so that value goes here, okay, from here. And then 2a, our a value is 1. So now we need to simplify this expression. We need to make it clean. We need to figure out what are those 2 values that we have as solutions. So this now turns into x equals 2 negatives turn into a positive 6. Plus or minus, the reason it's plus or minus because we're taking the square root, so there's 2 possible values, a negative and a positive. Square root of 16, it is a perfect square. Boom, 4 divided by 2. Cool? Because it's plus or minus, like we just mentioned, it's going to separate into 2 different equations. So we're going to just separate up this way. X equals 6 plus or minus the square root of y'all. I made another mistake, right? There should be no square root here because I already took the square root. Just make it a pretty little cloud. Cute. 6 plus or minus 4 divided by 2. X equals, watch my mistake, okay? That's something to look out for. Don't do what I did. Make sure when you take the square root, you write what the answer equals. Okay, bad mistake, Ms. Meekins. 6 plus 4, 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then we have 6 minus 4. Hope y'all can still see this. Trying to get it in the camera. No, avalanche. Hold on, y'all. I'm getting there. The avalanche fell, but we're back. Okay. 6 minus 4 divided by 2 equals 2 divided by 2, 1. So x equals 1. Can y'all see that? So now those are solutions, right? But we need our solutions to be x-intercepts as the ordered pair x comma 0. So that x equals 5 is 5 comma 0. That x equals 1 is 1 comma 0. These x-intercepts look very similar to when we factor, okay? So that's letting you know that you can use multiple methods in order to solve. Maybe you're feeling quadratic formula right now. Maybe you're feeling factoring. Maybe factoring doesn't work at all. And you have those. All right, guys, last thing. So now that we found those x-intercepts, right, remember we're graphing this. So we know that this x-intercepts is 1 comma 0, 5 comma 0. And this is where our line is going to cross the x-axis on our parabola. So we're going to go back and we're going to write 1 comma 0 and was it 5 comma 0? I hope. Right, yeah. Right? And then we're going to label, so if this is 3, 4, this is 5 on the x-axis. Okay? And then 1, so that's 1 on the x-axis. And now I can neatly kind of make a better U-shaped parabola. We like arrows at the end because it's continuous. And then from here, we just label. This is my vertex. This is my x-intercept. This is a point. This is the y-intercept. This is an x-intercept. And you're Gucci. All right.